its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to the wonderful world of wellness with Dr. Andy Mencia. This medical program heard from 7 to 7:30 each Saturday right here on WSBR 740 AM is brought to you by the Adult and Geriatric Center under the medical direction of geriatrician Dr. Andy Mencia.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, no, come on. Good morning. Come on, Stephen.
Steve Coleman, wake us up.
Well, we have two physicians here, and I'm here, and I've been here since 5, and we're having
two big guys.
Two big guys who want to talk about sex, actually, which is interesting, because that's what's really important, because Dr. Steve Coleman specializes in hormones and all those good things that make people want to have a happy life. And Dr. Mencia, of course, we don't talk enough about your psychological aspects of being a physician, a geriatric physician, but you know so much psychologically, so you bring all that in as a physician.
Yeah, you have to integrate. And, I teach at Nova University, FAU, and other universities. And the student, I try to bring them into reality that all of the conditions that are out there that we're going to be treating as physicians, they are always related to the psyche. It's very, very important. Yesterday we had the hypnotherapist working with one of my patients, and she was explaining to me when he came in, his pain level was a level 7 out of 10. That's very high. And as he was going through hypnosis, it kept dropping down to a 4. Then she would bring him out so he relaxes because it was his first time getting a hypnotherapist. And it will go back, and she was able to bring the pain down to 0 by the time he walked out of the office. So the psych has a very important component when we do acupuncture and acupressure, Steve, right?
That's amazing that the pain was able to go down that much.
Absolutely. And, when you do meditation, you're sitting down, you're doing meditation, you might have a migraine, you have a headache, but if you just let go of yourself and go into a deep meditation, deep trance, you can basically get rid of the pain.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because, see, for so long, Dr. Mencia and Dr. Coleman, all those, I guess it's a different theory. It's not the traditional medical theory of how you treat. And
exactly.
That's what makes you very special, Dr. Mencia, and, of course, Dr. Coleman now joining your practice. But I have known about this for a long time because I took the Silva Mind Control course probably about 35 years ago. And I learned all those kinds of things that if you go into a hypnotic, state, and it isn't like floating up. I mean, for people who don't really understand that, and you can explain a little bit more. But I do remember when we really practiced getting into what we call an alpha state, that I could make one hand very cold and one hand very hot.
Exactly.
And that really was amazing to me. That helped me understand everything that you've been talking about more.
The power of the mind.
That's what you do.
The power of the mind. I tell you, Steve, I don't know how you approach this, but when I get patients that come to me and they are concerned because they are about to be diagnosed with cancer or they had been just recently diagnosed with malignancy, I usually tell them, let's work with your psyche, let's work with your mind, because if you get depressed, your immune system is going to drop. And if your immune system is going to drop, you won't have any way of fighting the malignancy. Do you concur with that?
I absolutely do. Whatever the mind believes turns out to be the physical reality.
That's why you can see two individuals with the same cancer, and one will die sooner than the other one because one is a fighter and the other one is not. And the fighter will keep the mentality going, will not throw the towel in so soon, and they will continue to fight. And
yeah, they'll be more open to the various treatments and more positive in their mental attitude towards it, which always gives a better result. We see that in everything from weight loss to hormone problems to all these medical problems. And one of the biggest problems we have is people who are sort of in denial about their problems. Like, for instance, ladies, that are in menopause. Sometimes they come in, they're very afraid to be treated. because they've heard all these negative things in the media. Oh, estrogen causes cancer. Estrogen does all these other things. But the reality of it is when we really sit down and look at the evidence on that and see how people actually do being treated versus not being treated, usually the risk-benefit is, yes, I want to be treated.
But I think, aren't you talking about people maybe who are having these night sweats or day sweats? I was saying before we started the show, I've seen women with the water pouring out off them, and when I say
like
something,
a basketball player.
Yeah, you're right, and they're so upset they don't want to go out. Well, but the problem is they're miserable. They don't know what to do. But when I say something, they always say, Dr. Mencia, Dr. Coleman, they say, there's nothing we can do about it. It's menopause. That's what the doctors told me. But now, Steve, you're telling me there is something to do for people who are very hot and sweating.
Back in the old days, before we were more aware of all these things, some doctors did tell women, it's menopause. Now, typically these are male doctors.
You have to live through it.
And they didn't understand it, and they don't have a deep compassion for that problem. But once you begin to understand that problem and know how real it is, then you think, okay, now let me figure out a way to help to treat this. And there are many things that we can do. Hormone replacement is one of them. And it really does make a difference.
Well, I don't usually share these things, but I'm really on hormone replacement. I have a very minimal amount of testosterone and estrogen that I take. I have a gynecologist that's been treating me this way for at least 5 years, 5 years. And he also realized there was a lot of stuff that was out there, and he has done a lot of research. And he said, if it's controlled and he watches it and he knows, he said, it's wonderful for you.
Do you take traditional hormone replacement?
There's a compound of testosterone.
Bioidentical.
Bioidentical.
Yeah, I take that, and I do that two times a week, and it's wonderful for me because it's helped certain kinds of things that happen as you're aging.
It makes a big difference, but don't you notice also not just the physical changes, but also that it makes you feel better mentally?
No, I've always felt, but no, I've never had that problem. It was only really just a physical problem.
Because you probably tackled this early. But there are many people out there that say, you know what, I'm going to stop this hormone. And then they say, wow, I cannot focus anymore. Mentally, I think I'm depressed. And
I see. So it just happened, and I never realized because I never really have had that problem. But I think you're right, because I do meet women who are really, they're not depressed, they're just not happy. Mm-hmm. It's not a depression
they cannot focus on the conversation.
Yeah, well, they're just, everything's a big problem for them.
It's important to remember that the male brain is different than the female brain.
You mean Venus versus Mars?
Exactly. Because as a male, from the time of 6 weeks of birth in utero, so when you're talking about a 6-week-old fetus, that child has already been conditioned to have testosterone in his brain. So men are literally wired differently. And in women, it's estrogen. So the primary hormone for men is testosterone. The primary hormone for women is estrogen. And if you don't have that hormone in your system, then you're not going to function as well as you could and should, because those are required. The definition of a hormone is a chemical substance that's produced and released into the blood that is required for your existence. That's the definition of a hormone, if you look it up in any endocrinology textbook.
But Steve, if I'm going to go there and try to get a replacement, or I'm going to send one of my female patients, one of the questions I guess the audience might have for you is, what is the benefit of doing bioidentical hormone replacement? What is that stuff?
Well, I think it's important to talk about the benefits and the risks. Now, everyone's heard all the negatives, that's for sure, because you've heard all the studies. Oh, they said stop taking, hormones because it's causing cancer. Stop because it's causing these other problems. But the reality of it is all of those studies that were done that showed negative outcomes were using artificial synthetic hormones that are not natural to the human body. We've all heard of Premarin. We've all heard of Provera. Those are chemicals which are actually produced in horses.
From the horse's urine.
Correct. Pregnant mare's urine, Premarin. Okay, that's just an example. Mm-hmm. Nothing against that particular company.
Or the horses. We don't have anything against horses.
But, if I give that to a lady, is that bioidentical to her? I don't see a long tail on her. She's not a horse.
Right.
Sorry. That's been taking all my stuff. No, but I like your point. So bioidentical, explain that word, what that means.
Well, the idea is to try to give you the same thing that God gave you in your bloodstream when you were functioning normally, when you were healthy. Now, that's not exactly 100% true, but we try to mimic those molecules. Now, in ladies, we can do it much easier than we can in men because with testosterone, we usually have to add something to it to get it to absorb. Still the same molecule, but we have to add something to it. But in ladies, we just give straight progesterone and straight estrogen. So we call
in medicine the vehicle of transportation. Just
that's
something
correct,
to transport the active ingredient. But where do they come from, those bioidentical hormones? How do they get
They're
produced?
Actually manufactured, based on the recombinant DNA process.
Okay.
So they took humans and they actually cloned it, and they said, this is exactly what it should be. This is the real molecule.
Okay.
That's amazing. Let me give a phone number out. We are, of course, talking with Dr. Andy Mencia and now a new associate, Dr. Steve Coleman. And the phone number for you to call if you want to make an appointment, 954-489-1345. And I actually saw your new website, which is starting to really look great, as a matter of fact. But let's just give the phone number. And you should know that Saturdays, Dr. Mencia, this man, I can't believe the work he puts in. He's joyful because he can't wait to go to his office on Saturday. Patients start at 8:30. He works till 5. And he loves it because there are people who can't get there. So if you're one of them...
I don't want my patient to end up in an urgent care center.
I love the fact you're doing this.
No attachment to the patient or anything like that. It's a great thing to have out there, urgent care center, because when you look at an emergency room, the amount of waiting that you have to do in an emergency room is incredible. So urgent care center has a place, I guess, when you travel.
Especially for little babies, for children too.
But I think my patient, I'd rather than come to the office.
Oh yeah, the trauma of, as you were saying, in the emergency room, terrible. So thank you. I'm just so happy that you are doing that.
So we are open on Saturday.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Open on Saturday, but please do make an appointment. And if you want to see Dr. Coleman, do you run like a whole amount of testing first when someone comes in to see about all their levels?
Well, the first thing I want to do is actually spend a considerable amount of face-to-face time with the patient and really get to know them and find out what's really actually going on in their mind and their body, so that we can actually do the right tests and figure out what should be done.
And what's their expectation? Where do they want to go? What's important to them?
Well, a lot of ladies, when they come in for the menopause consultation, the big concern that they have is all these negative things that they've heard that are, risks. So why don't we talk about that? Let's talk about the actual risks, because everybody says, this, estrogen can cause cancer. There may be a little bit of evidence that it could cause some breast cancer.
Everything can cause cancer, Dr. Coleman.
Isn't that the truth?
Mm-hmm. No, but I'm going to say, I've told you, I've been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm in great shape. I'm 74 years old, and I love this. Yeah. So this is the way it's supposed to be.
You should be feeling great every single day. And if
I
you're not, then you do have a
Exactly.
problem.
So if people aren't feeling like I am, and they're suffering from that, they should go to you.
Getting old doesn't mean you should be feeling sick.
That's right. No.
Or depressed.
No, because the older you get, the more experience you have to enjoy life. But you do have to have help, medical help, good medical help. And we know that there is this whole new theme about hormones.
And overall wellness, because everything relates. The hormones play a crucial role in almost every single process in your body. When you look at what actually controls the body, it's your brain, which is your thoughts, and it's also, the hormones which are released from the brain and are made in the rest of the body. So if those things aren't working, it's impossible to have good health. So even weight loss, we oftentimes see is related to hormonal issues. So when we get to the bottom of these things, we can help people lose weight, feel better, be more focused, and basically feel better and be happier.
That's a good point. I don't know if I shared this. I was thinking about, you were talking about the testosterone. I had a friend who all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she had just gotten a new a boyfriend, and I guess they were, sleeping together and all. Everything was great.
Okay, kids off the air.
But wait, this gets better. This gets better.
I'm blushing, by the way.
Yeah, right. So this gets better. So all of a sudden now she's having her blood pressure's going up, it's going down. She's having terrible things happening to her she didn't know, and she went for tests and all. It turned out that the man she's been sleeping with does testosterone on his chest. And she's been next to him, and the testosterone caused that for her. Then they realized it, and whatever happened. But that's how powerfully good it could be, as well as the other. But you have to know what you're doing, right?
It's important to always think about the risks of everything we do. And like, for instance, in women, when we do a menopause treatment program, the risk is not so much the actual cancers, because we can monitor for that, okay? But there is a slight increased risk that there could be a blood clot or a deep vein thrombosis, what we call thromboembolism. That's the only thing that's actually ever been proven to a small but significant degree. So I always inform people about that, and then it's up to them.
But they just have to be more cautious. So if you're in a plane ride for 3 or 4 hours, get off the seat and walk around every half an hour just to prevent a blood clot.
That's true, and we don't always know, who's going to get what, exactly. And we don't know when, but we do the best we can to prevent that. But that doesn't mean I don't think that people should not be treated. I think you should get treated and feel as good as you possibly can, because if you live to be 122, but you don't feel good, what really good have we done for you?
Well, you've been picking on the women this morning. I want to pick on the men. How about all these guys there who are now in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they want, to have some fun? And what about their testosterone? Are you treating people like that too?
Absolutely. It's it's a little bit less complicated in men.
Why?
Because there's less hormones involved.
But they could be
cycling.
having,
we are simple people.
Oh, no, you're not. But we have prostate. We have, now will you help someone if they have an enlarged prostate? So now you have to guide them to know that they can't have too much testosterone and what's going on.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because one of the things that people may not know is that breast cancer and prostate cancer are oftentimes caused by the same factors, which is too much estrogen. So
a man can have too much estrogen.
That's right.
How does he get that?
Well, there's a couple different things. One is your body naturally converts from testosterone to estrogen. So, and especially if we are on a replacement program for a man, we have to give them something to block the transformation to estrogen. Okay, that's called the anastrozole, which is the brand name was Arimidex, but now it's just called an anastrozole, which is the generic name. Because we want to have some estrogen, but not too much.
Not too much.
Because if we have no estrogen, it's very bad for the bones for men and women. But a little bit is good. That's why there's a normal range for everything.
Well, Dr. Mencia, I really do appreciate the fact that now you've brought these people into your practice. It's very unusual. Most of the time, it's...
unfortunately, people practice medicine out there as either traditional or holistic. And, I say, why we cannot merge these two together? Why we cannot overlap? Dr. Coleman and myself, we treat hypertension. We give cure for hypertension when the time comes. We wrote the book on the kidneys there for people to protect their kidney, to prevent dialysis and damaging their kidney. We have to treat the hypertension, and so we treat diabetes. We have to treat diabetes. But we both, Steve Coleman and myself, we bring both the holistic and the traditional combined. And by combining those, then everything, like Steve is saying, we have to put it in the balance. Benefits versus risk. And then look at the patient. And if the benefits overweigh the risk, then the patient has to agree, of course. We get many, many patients, I'm sure you too, Steve, that patient that come to you and you say, well, I don't want to be treated for this. I prefer not to take an aspirin right now.
It's interesting. We've had several people very recently that are coming in for high blood pressure. And, there's always this what I call denial about denial. They don't know they're in denial, but they don't want to be treated for their blood pressure. And, for instance, a guy will say, oh, doc, but, my blood pressure only goes up when I'm at work or when I'm sitting in traffic. And I say, well, let me ask you something. Does your brain, does your kidney, does your heart care what the reason is that your blood pressure's up? No, because all it knows is that the blood pressure's up. So we've got to treat these things.
It's going to damage those organs.
It's absolutely going to damage it. And it's, Dr. Mencia wrote a fabulous book about kidneys and how they are affected by all these different diseases. And it's a very important book for every patient to read, especially if they've ever had anything to do with the kidney or any heart problems. And how would someone go about getting a copy of your book, Dr. Mencia?
Well, we were looking at some letters that we get from the audience, and we get letters from Massachusetts and out of
all
the state
over.
of Florida, all over. So for people that are not in the area, they can go to Amazon.com. And you can Google in Amazon.com my name, Dr. Landy Mencia, and the book will show up. Also, if you are in the area and you come to the office, you can get it at the office.
Tell me the title again.
Take care of your kidneys so that they can take care of you.
Boy, that is so true.
Of all the books that you could have written, why did you choose that?
I was the keynote speaker in Philadelphia, and the topic was the relationship between kidney disease and anemia. Why people that have kidney disease become anemic. Now, I'm a national speaker for many pharmaceutical companies. So when they asked me to be the keynote speaker in this big event they had in Philadelphia, I started compiling all my lectures that I have put together in the past. And I said, well, I have so much material here that I can just write a book about the kidney, and that's how.
So that's what. But you do know that I guess when some people are on dialysis, that's kind of the beginning.
Well, when I went through my lecture, I noticed that kidney disease, you can break it down from stage 1 to stage 5. So you go from a very benign kidney damage where it only shows in the urine and the blood test looks completely normal, to stage 5, which is the person at the end stage on dialysis now. And as I tried to put my lecture together, I saw that 750,000 people was at the beginning stage, then 750,000 people was at stage 2, and then there was a huge drop to less than 250,000 people with pre-dialysis, and then less in dialysis. And I say, why did it drop? I had to explain this in case somebody asked me. So I started researching, and the reason why there was a huge drop in the number of people pre-dialysis is because they were dying even before they got to dialysis.
I see.
And I say, oh my God, we should be preventing this from happening. We're letting people die.
We want to prevent end-stage kidney disease, and the way we do that is through proper treatment of the medical conditions that are aggravating it.
So you get people right away and you start to watch them. Even though I know you're specialized in the hormone replacement, you really are a physician who is, I guess you call it a primary care physician.
Yeah, I'm a board-certified internal medicine physician.
Right, but you're just specializing in that. Why is that? I was just asking him about, the kidney, and of course I got that explanation, but why have you decided that hormone replacement is important for you?
Well, it's very important because if you think about it, even the kidney problem that Dr. Mencia is talking about is related to the hormones. Because when you have anemia, it's lack of epigen, which is erythropoietin, which actually makes your blood cells work. So if you break it down and look at the root cause of many, many, many illnesses, not all, but most, hormones are related.
It's amazing. We don't talk about it. It's not. Hormones are. 20 years ago you went to the doctor, you never said you're having a problem with your hormones.
Well, even today, there's a lot of physicians, unfortunately, that I don't blame the patient all the time. We have to take blame ourselves. There's a lot of physicians out there that practice ageism. Just like sexism is discrimination against somebody because of their sex, racism, discrimination because of their race. Ageism is when you discriminate the person based on their age, and you say, you're just getting old. So if you are, having hot flashes and your bed is wet every night because you're sweating so much, you're just getting old.
You're getting old.
Sleep in the couch.
Now, you're right. And the husband says, or whatever. That's wonderful. I mean, I always am so impressed when Dr. Mencia is here. I have to tell you that, because there's not a time where I don't go raving about the fact that he does treat people with a very different outlook, and I don't know why he does it and why other people. What happened? I know it was your father. We talked about this.
My grandfather lived to 109.
Yeah, but the idea, you maybe grew up in Hawaii. Maybe it was a whole different idea for you.
Well, I think also the fact that before I became a doctor, my field was in psychology. So I studied more the mind, and as I went on and on, my professor kept saying, going to medical school, you're going to be a great clinician, going to medical school. So I went to medicine, and I keep merging.
Combine the two. But you do really like older people. See, a lot of people, and a lot of young doctors, I mean, I've talked with enough of them and I've read enough about it. They don't, I think it's because when you're with younger people.
One of my patients this week, she's working with her husband, and one of my other patients come out of the room, and we started dancing in the hallway. So she loves to dance, so we started dancing. So the husband goes, I want to be your patient. I want to come in.
No. Well, it's because, there is a lot of happiness at your office, and you do treat people that way.
I think the main message is that, there's hope. And this is a crucial point, because there can be no healing without hope.
Yeah, but the other part about this, too, as you were saying, as one grows older, they really do bring a lot of experience and love and confidence. And if you as a physician respect that.
I think in life, good brings good.
It does.
Look at Steve and look at Nicole.
No, right. I mean, you have really
all of the
garnered people here. Have been fantastic. So I hope that people will go and visit you, call for an appointment, have a checkup, have a second opinion, have your hormones checked. It's 954-489-1345, 954-489-1345. It's the Adult and Geriatric Medical Center, located at 1608 East Commercial Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. And remember, every Saturday morning at 7 to 7:30, it's the Wonderful World of Wellness. In fact, the whole name. And we are getting very close to starting the television show. It should start in May, the way that the schedule is. So you're going to get to see these gorgeous men right on the.
Finally,
right. Okay, we're going to be back with a wonderful. We're going to hear all about how you can have good hearing, because that's the most important thing also. So Terry Rodriguez will be with us shortly. Thank you, gentlemen.